I was standing in the middle of a crowded gaming convention, watching the girl I'd spent months mocking on my own stream absolutely dismantle the world's top-ranked professional player. And that was the moment I realized I hadn't just made a fool of myself. I had potentially ruined the career of the only person who ever truly understood me. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, and the silence that fell over the arena was deafening as she took off her signature neon fox mask, revealing a face that I recognized from a past I had tried so hard to bury. Before I get into the grit of how this all fell apart and the massive secret she was hiding, I have to ask you guys something. If you found out your biggest rival was actually the person you owed everything to, would you come clean and risk your own reputation? Or would you keep the secret to save your own skin? Tell me if you think I'm the villain here, because honestly, looking back at where this all started, I'm not even sure myself. My name is Alex, but online everyone knows me as Glitch, a high-energy variety streamer who built a following by being the loud-mouthed, hyper-competitive guy who refuses to lose. I've been streaming for about 5 years now, and while I'm not at the top of the food chain, I've got a solid community that tunes in every night to watch me climb the ranks in games like Apex Legends and Valorant. But about a year ago, the landscape changed when a new streamer appeared out of nowhere. Her handle was Kitsune, and she did something that almost nobody in the industry does anymore. She never showed her face, and she never used a voice changer. She just wore this high-tech, glowing fox mask and played in absolute silence, save for the sound of her keyboard clicking like a machine gun. At first, I thought it was a gimmick. In the streaming world, gimmicks are everywhere. I figured she was just some silver-tier player using the mystery to bait viewers. So being the arrogant guy I was, I started reacting to her clips on my stream. I'd watch her pull off these insane, frame-perfect headshots and I'd scoff, telling my chat that it was obviously aimbotting, or that she was being carried by a pro player off-camera. I called her a fraud. I called her a waifu baiter. I dragged her name through the mud for months because her numbers were exploding while mine were stagnating. My community ate it up. We'd raid her channel just to spam, show your face, or turn off the cheats, but she never reacted. She just kept playing, her movements fluid and hauntingly familiar, like she was dancing through the maps. To understand why I was so bitter, you have to know about Nova. 10 years ago, when the competitive scene was just starting to get serious, there was a player named Nova. She was a legend, the kind of person who defined the meta. She was my duo partner, my best friend, and for a brief summer, the girl I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We were going to go pro together. We spent thousands of hours in dimly lit rooms, drinking lukewarm energy drinks and dreaming of trophies. But during the finals of a major underground tournament, a scandal broke. Someone leaked that Nova had been using a macro to automate her movements. She was banned from every major league, her reputation was incinerated overnight, and she vanished. She blocked me on everything, moved away, and I never heard from her again. I felt abandoned. I felt like she had lied to me too. Now watching Kitsune, I started to see patterns. The way she would jump peek a corner, the way she managed her inventory, it was like a signature. It was Nova's signature. I spent nights staying up until 4 a.m., layering footage of Nova from 2015 over Kitsune's streams from 2025. The mouse flick was identical. The reaction time was within 3 milliseconds of Nova's peak performance. I started a series on my channel called The Kitsune Conspiracy. I told my viewers that I was going to unmask the biggest liar in gaming history. I didn't care that I was ruining her life. I wanted revenge for her leaving me all those years ago. I hired digital detectives to track her IP, but she was too smart. She used layers of VPNs. I tried to bait her into speaking on stream by donating thousands of dollars with messages that were personal to our past, but she never bit. She just played. The more she ignored me, the crazier I got. My streams became less about gaming and more about this obsession. My chat was split. Half of them loved the drama, and the other half told me I was becoming a stalker. I didn't care. I felt like I was finally getting close to the girl who broke my heart. Every time she reached a new milestone, 1 million followers, a partnership with a major hardware brand, I felt a surge of jealousy. I told my audience that the industry was being fooled by a ghost. I even reached out to the tournament organizers of the upcoming Vegas Invitational, giving them dossiers of evidence that Kitsune was a band player. I wanted her gone. I wanted her to feel the same isolation I felt when she disappeared. But there was a small voice in the back of my head, one I kept trying to drown out with loud music and hype trains. That voice asked, what if she didn't do it? What if she's back because she has something to prove? I ignored it. I convinced myself I was the hero of the story, the one protecting the integrity of the game. I started reaching out to other streamers, building a coalition against her. We'd coordinate our streams to talk about her at the same time, creating this massive wave of negativity that followed her whenever she went live. I saw her viewer count start to dip as the rumors of her being a cheater began to take root in the mainstream. I felt powerful. I felt like the king of the niche. But then the DMs started. I got a message from an old account, a burner, that just said, "You're making the same mistake they made." I brushed it off. I was too deep in the content to stop. I began preparing for the live event in Vegas, like it was a war. I spent hours at the gym, hours practicing my aim, but mostly hours perfecting my reveal speech. I had a camera crew ready to follow me, hoping to catch the moment her mask came off. I was going to be the man who took down the fox. The pressure was building, not just for her, but for me. If I was wrong, my career was over. If I was right, I'd be a legend. Every night, I would lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moments we shared as kids. We used to share a single headset, one of us listening to the game audio while the other focused purely on the visual cues. We were a team, a unit. And now, I was spending every waking hour trying to dismantle her legacy. I started getting messages from her moderator team, pleading with me to stop. They told me she was going through enough, that she was playing through physical pain. But I dismissed it as a sob story meant to garner sympathy. I even went as far as to create deepfake analysis videos, manipulating her movement data to make it look more suspicious than it actually was. I was becoming the very thing I hated, a manipulator. My ego was so tied up in being the one who exposed her that I couldn't see the person behind the mask anymore. I remember the night before I flew to Vegas. I sat in front of my PC and just stared at her empty stream. The chat was moving at 1,000 miles an hour, half of them chanting my name, the other half defending her. I felt like a god, a puppet master pulling the strings of the entire community. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the guy looking back. I looked haggard, my eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep and too much blue light. I was winning the war of public opinion, but I was losing my soul. I kept telling myself it was for the good of the community. I told myself that if I didn't do this, the next generation of gamers would grow up thinking you could cheat your way to the top. I justified my cruelty as a public service. I even started selling Unmask the Fox merchandise, profiting off the hate I had generated. It was disgusting looking back at it. I was making thousands of dollars a day from a hate campaign against my former best friend. And the worst part? I knew deep down that she was better than me. That was the real reason I hated her. She didn't need a face cam. She didn't need a loud personality. She didn't need to beg for likes and subscribes. She just had pure, raw talent. The kind of talent I had spent 10 years trying to replicate but never quite could. So, that's where things stood on the morning of the biggest day of my career. I had the power to either protect the girl I once loved or destroy her for the sake of my own content. Before I tell you what happened when we finally stepped onto that stage, and the truth behind the cheating scandal from 10 years ago came out, I want you to pause and comment below. If you were in my shoes and you had the chance to cancel your rival and propel your own career to the top, would you do it? Or would you protect someone who walked out on you a decade ago? I really want to know what you guys think about the ethics of this, because I'm still losing sleep over it. The morning of the tournament, Vegas was sweltering. The arena was a massive dome of glass and steel, and inside, the atmosphere was even hotter. I saw Kitsune arriving in a blacked-out SUV. She was surrounded by security, still wearing the mask. The crowd was booing her. My fans were there with signs that said, "Unmask the fraud." I felt a twinge of guilt seeing her walk through that gauntlet of hate, but I pushed it down. This was for the integrity of the game, right? We were funneled into the practice rooms. I was in room A, and she was in room B, right next door. The walls were thin. I could hear her typing. It was a rhythmic, steady sound. Not the sound of someone who was nervous. It was the sound of a professional. I walked out into the hall to get some water, and saw her standing by the vending machine. She had her back to me. I took a deep breath and said, "It's over, Nova. I know it's you. Just walk away now and I won't make it a scene on stage." She didn't turn around. She just reached into the machine, grabbed a bottle of water, and said in that low, familiar voice, "You always thought you were the protagonist, Alex. But you're just the narrator. And you're a bad one." She walked away before I could respond. That encounter shook me. During the tournament, I was playing like a man possessed, but I was distracted. I kept looking over at her booth. Every time she made a play, the crowd would gasp, and then remember they were supposed to hate her and start hissing. It was the most toxic environment I had ever been in. When we finally met in the semifinals, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The casters were playing up the grudge match angle. I looked at her through the glass. She looked like a statue. As the match began, I realized I was outmatched. She wasn't just good. She was playing at a level I couldn't even comprehend. It wasn't aimbotting. It was intuition. She knew my rotations before I made them. She knew when I was low on ammo. She was playing the game on a four-dimensional level. After she beat me, 13-0, she didn't gloat. She just sat there. Then came the final against Viper. Viper was the worst kind of pro. Arrogant, sexist, and loud. He was saying things into his mic that were being broadcast to the whole arena, mocking her for needing a mask. He told her she was probably ugly or hiding a beard. The crowd, which had been on his side because of me, started to turn. Even they thought he was going too far. And that's when it happened. She didn't just win. She humiliated him. She used the worst weapons in the game to beat his top-tier loadout. It was a statement. When the match ended, the developer came out and the integrity report I had helped craft was brought up. The developer looked at the data, and then looked at Kitsune. "We have a report that you are a band player from the 2015 circuit." She stood up, took the mic, and unmasked. The reveal wasn't just a shock because of who she was, but because of the expression on her face. She wasn't angry, she was disappointed. She explained the backdoor in the 2015 software. She explained how the tournament directors had been betting against their own players, and used her as a scapegoat when she threatened to go to the press. She had the logs. She had the emails. She had everything. The crowd went from booing to a standing ovation within 5 minutes. I sat in my chair, feeling smaller than I ever have in my life. I had been the tool the old guard used to try and suppress her again. I had been their loudest megaphone. I watched as the head of the league, a man I had looked up to, was escorted out of the building by police. It turned out my evidence was actually fed to me by his associates to ensure I'd do their dirty work for them. I wasn't the detective, I was the pawn. I had spent a decade hating the person who was actually the victim. The guilt was like a physical weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I watched the cameras zoom in on her face. The face of my old friend, covered in sweat and tears, but holding her head high. She didn't look at me with hate. She looked at me with pity. That was worse. I wanted her to scream at me. I wanted her to hit me. But she just ignored me, as if I were a ghost. In the weeks that followed, my life imploded. My investigation videos were taken down by YouTube for harassment. My sponsorships vanished. My own community turned on me, calling me a snake and a corporate shill. I had to hire a PR firm just to handle the death threats. But none of that mattered compared to the loss of the connection I thought I still had with her. I tried to reach out. I sent flowers to her agency. I wrote letters. I even tried to show up at a signing event she was doing, but security turned me away before I could even get close. I realized then that forgiveness isn't something you're entitled to. It's something that has to be earned, and sometimes, the damage is just too great. I spent a year in isolation, much like she did. I stopped streaming. I moved back in with my parents. I worked a regular job at a warehouse, away from the screens and the keyboards. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to be Alex again, not Glitch. I started volunteering at local youth centers, teaching kids how to play games responsibly and how to spot the signs of online bullying. I used my story as a cautionary tale. I told them how easy it is to become the monster you think you're fighting. Eventually, I decided to return to the internet, but under a new name and with a new mission. I don't focus on the numbers anymore. I don't care about the meta. I just care about the people. I've reached out to other victims of the 2015 scandal, helping them find the resources to clear their names. It's a slow process, but it's the only way I know how to make amends. I saw Nova recently. Well, I saw her on a billboard in Times Square. She's the face of a new Fair Play initiative. She looks happy. She looks at peace. And even though she never spoke to me again, seeing her win is enough. I've realized that the greatest victory isn't winning a tournament or having 1 million followers. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror and know that you're a person of integrity. I failed that test once, but I'm working every day to make sure I never fail it again. I learned the hard way that when you go looking for a villain, you might just find one in the mirror. It's easy to get caught up in the drama and the numbers, but behind every screen is a real person with a real story that you might not know anything about. Like this video if you think I deserved what I got, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about the dark side of the internet and the lessons I've learned the hard way. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Do you think she should have forgiven me, or was I too far gone? I'll see you all in the next story.